Don't go to that meeting, the girl said. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old, and she was standing in the middle of the parking garage with grease on her knees and a look on her face that wasn't afraid of anything. Don't go in there, the little girl said, and Roland Fitch almost walked right past her. She was sitting on the bottom step of the courthouse side entrance, the one that led up to the private parking level, with her chin resting in both hands and her eyes fixed on the door like she was daring it to open. She looked maybe 9 years old. She had on a purple jacket with a broken zipper and one sneaker that was untied. Roland noticed the sneaker because he had spent 40 years noticing things other people walked past, and because something about the way she said it, not please and not excuse me, just a flat, certain statement, made him stop. He stopped. I beg your pardon, he said. I said don't go in there. She didn't look up at him. She was still watching the door. The man with the gray car is waiting for you. Roland looked at the door. He looked back at the girl. What man? He said. It wasn't really a question. He already felt something shift in his chest that had kept him out of trouble for 4 decades pressing itself against his ribs. He's been there since this morning, she said. He walked in and out 3 times. He keeps looking at his phone. He has a gray car parked on level 2, and he's standing right behind the pillar next to the stairwell. She finally looked up at him. You're Mr. Fitch, right? Your picture is on the building. Roland stood very still. His name was on the building. That was true. Fitch and Associates had occupied the top 3 floors of the Caldwell Professional Tower for 19 years, and his photograph, taken when he was 54 and still had most of his hair, was on the lobby directory and the firm's website and the bronze plaque near the front entrance. He had always thought it was a reasonable thing, a dignified thing. He had never thought about it as a way for someone to identify him from a distance. What's your name? He said. Addie. Addie, where are your parents? My mom works in the clerk's office on the 2nd floor. I'm waiting for her. She pointed at the door again. She told me not to go upstairs. She told me to wait here. I've been here since 11 and I saw him. Roland checked his watch. It was 20 past 2. He had a meeting at 2:30. He had been told, by his own partner of 16 years, a man named Carson Webb, that the meeting was a formality. A final sign-off on the Aldrich estate settlement, the largest probate case the firm had managed in a decade. $31 million in assets. Carson had handled the last 3 weeks of paperwork because Roland had been in Atlanta for a family matter. Carson had said, come at 2:30, sign 2 pages, and we can all go home early. Roland looked at the door. What did he look like? He said. The man, tall, shorter hair than yours. He had on a dark jacket and he kept his hands in his pockets. She paused. He looked at me once and I pretended I was reading. She held up a paperback that Roland now noticed was upside down. Despite everything, he almost smiled. Did you hear him say anything? He asked. He was on the phone. He said he's coming at 2:30, and then he said yes a few times, and then he says, I understand, and hung up. She shrugged, like this was simply information she had gathered and was now dispensing, like a weather report. He sounded nervous. People sound different when they're nervous. Roland said nothing for a long moment. 40 years of law. He had sat across from lying clients and lying witnesses and 2 sitting judges who had later gone to prison. He had developed what his first mentor, a silver-haired man from Savannah, called the pause. The ability to go completely still and let the truth arrange itself in front of him without touching it. He used the pause now. Addie, he said, I'd like to call your mother. Would that be all right? She considered this seriously, the way children do when they've been given the rare experience of being asked rather than told. She doesn't like her phone going off at work, she said. But this is probably okay. Her name was Donna Reese. She came down the stairwell in 7 minutes, with her lanyard still around her neck and her reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. And she looked at Roland Fitch the way most people look at someone famous when they meet them in an unexpected place. Briefly startled, then professionally composed. Mr. Fitch, she said, I'm so sorry if Addie bothered you. She didn't, he said. Mrs. Reese, I need to ask you something. Is there a man, tall, dark jacket, standing near the stairwell on level 2 of the parking structure? She blinked. I don't know. I came down the interior stairs. Could you find out for me? Without going yourself. Is there anyone who could check? She understood something was wrong from the way he asked it. Calmly, precisely, without drama, the way a person asks when they've already decided the answer matters. She got on her radio. She had a colleague walk the 2nd level of the garage on a pretense of checking for a reported oil leak. The colleague came back in 4 minutes. Yeah, he said over the radio. There's a guy hanging around near the east stairwell. Gray Cadillac ATS on level 2. Been there since around 10. Guy's been going in and out. I asked if he needed help. He said he was waiting for someone. Roland thanked him. He thanked Donna Reese. He looked at Addie. You were right, he said. Addie nodded. Like this was not a surprise. He called his assistant, Miriam, from the lobby of the building 2 blocks away, the one with the coffee shop on the ground floor, where he sometimes ate lunch when he needed to think without anyone finding him. "I need you to pull the Aldrich file," he said. "The final settlement documents. I need you to look at the wire transfer instructions and tell me what account number is listed." Miriam was 61 years old and had worked for Roland for 14 of those years. She did not ask why. She said, "Give me 4 minutes," and she gave him 3. The account number she read back to him was not the Aldrich estate account. He knew the Aldrich estate account. He had reviewed it himself in January, and he had written the last 4 digits on a post-it note that was still folded in his wallet because he had the habit of his generation, the habit of writing things down. The last 4 digits Miriam read him were different. He asked her to read the full routing number. She did. He thanked her and told her to lock the file in her drawer, not the cabinet, her drawer, and not to say anything to anyone in the office until she heard from him again. He could hear in her silence that she understood this was serious. She said, "All right, Roland." She had called him Roland exactly 4 times in 14 years. This was the 4th. He sat down at a corner table in the coffee shop and ordered nothing and thought for 11 minutes. The math was not complicated. The Aldrich estate would settle at $31 million. The wire transfer, if signed today, would go to a different account than the one belonging to the estate. Carson Webb had structured the paperwork. Carson Webb had scheduled the meeting. Carson Webb had told him it was a formality. And there was a man, in a dark jacket, who had known Roland would be arriving at 2:30 and had been waiting since morning. He thought about the word formality. He thought about the 16 years, the Christmas parties, and the difficult cases, and the phone calls at midnight, when one of them had a problem the other needed to hear. He thought about Carson's daughter's wedding, at which Roland had given a toast. He thought about the ski trip to Colorado 8 years ago, when they had both been briefly, embarrassingly stranded on the wrong trail and had spent 2 hours finding their way back and had laughed about it every winter since. He sat with those memories for exactly as long as he could afford to, which was about 90 seconds. Then he took out his phone and called Deputy Sheriff Linda Holt, whom he had known since she was a junior officer, and he had defended her brother in a civil matter 20 years ago and won. He did not tell her everything on the phone. He told her enough. She arrived in 22 minutes with a colleague, both in plain clothes, and they sat with him in the coffee shop, and he laid it out the way he laid out every case. Chronologically, without editorializing, the facts in the order they happened. The little girl on the steps, the man by the stairwell, the account number. Deputy Holt listened with her hands flat on the table. "You haven't spoken to Webb since this morning?" she said. "He texted me at noon to confirm the 2:30 meeting. I didn't reply." "Good." She looked at her colleague, something unspoken passing between them. "Mr. Fitch, I have to ask, is there anyone else who would benefit from the misdirection of those up funds? Anyone who might have access to the account details besides Webb?" "Carson had sole control of the settlement documents for the past 3 weeks," Roland said. "He asked me to step back while I was in Atlanta. I agreed because I trusted him. He said that sentence, the way you say something you have decided you will not say again, meaning once and then never." "All right," Holt said. "Here's what I'd like to do." He walked into the building at 2:50. 20 minutes late. He had never been 20 minutes late to a meeting in his professional life, and the fact of it, the small, deliberate wrongness of it, sat oddly on him as he rode the elevator up. Carson Webb was in the conference room with a cup of coffee and his reading glasses on and the posture of a man who has been waiting and is trying not to look like he has been waiting. He stood when Roland came in. "There you are," he said. "I was starting to get worried." "Traffic," Roland said. He sat down. He did not take off his coat. Carson slid the documents across the table. 2 pages, as promised. A pen was already uncapped beside them. "Just the signature pages," Carson said. "Everything else is in order. We're all set." Roland picked up the first page. He did not look at the signature line. He looked at the account information in the 3rd paragraph, which most people would not read because most people trusted that the person who prepared the documents had prepared them correctly, and most of the time they would be right, and that was the entire mechanism of the thing, the assumption of trust, cultivated over 16 years, leveraged in a single afternoon. "This account," Roland said. He set the page down. "This isn't the Aldrich estate account." Carson did not move. That was the thing Roland would remember later, not that Carson argued, or explained, or tried to recover. He simply did not move. Like something in him had been waiting for this too, like some part of him had known this moment was coming and had made its peace with it already. "Roland," Roland said. He said it quietly. He did not raise his voice. He had not raised his voice in a professional setting in 19 years, and he was not going to start now. "Don't," Explain it. Don't apologize for it. Just don't. He stood up from the table. The door opened. Deputy Holt came in, and her colleague came in behind her, and the man in the dark jacket from the parking garage, who turned out to be named Dale Pruitt, who turned out to have a prior record in 2 states, who turned out to have received 2 wire transfers from a holding company that traced back to Carson Webb, was brought in from the hallway where he had been located 40 minutes prior, at the direction of a 3rd officer who had been watching the garage. Carson Webb sat very still through all of it. His coffee cup was still in his hand. At some point, he set it down. The estate attorneys were notified before 5 o'clock. The wire transfer had not been completed. The account, a shell account opened in the name of a Delaware LLC with no employees and no address, was flagged. The $31 million belonging to the heirs of Arthur and Marguerite Aldrich remained where it was supposed to remain. Carson Webb was taken in for questioning. Dale Pruitt was arrested on charges of criminal conspiracy and solicitation. The full shape of what they had planned took several more weeks to come into focus, and Roland did not involve himself in that process more than he had to sing. 2. Which was the hardest thing. Stepping back, giving information when asked, and then waiting in the way that old men who have done their part have learned sometimes to wait. His attorney license was not in jeopardy. He had done nothing wrong. He had, in fact, done everything right. But none of that was the part he thought about. He went back to the courthouse the next morning, not for any professional reason, just because he had an errand near there, and because he found himself, almost without deciding to, taking the route that passed the side entrance. Addie was not on the steps. Of course she wasn't. It was a Thursday morning. And she was presumably in school, where 9-year-olds are supposed to be. He went to the clerk's office on the 2nd floor instead. He asked for Donna Reese. The woman at the desk looked at him for a moment. He was in a suit and he was clearly not there for routine paperwork, and then she went to get her. Donna Reese came out with her lanyard and her reading glasses and the same composed expression she'd had the day before. "Mr. Fitch," she said. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "both of you. I don't know if Addie told you what happened after. She told me some of it." Donna said. She looked at him carefully. She said, "You listened to her." He thought about that. "She made it easy," he said. Donna Reese smiled, just a little, the way parents do when they are proud of someone and are trying not to make too much of it. She's been doing that her whole life, noticing things. "I keep telling her she'd make a good lawyer." A pause. "Or a detective." "Both," Roland said. "Tell her both." He walked back to his office on the kind of March morning that can't decide whether it's winter or spring, the light going back and forth between gray and gold. He had calls to make and a firm to reorganize, and a 16-year partnership to slowly, carefully wind down in a way that did as little damage as possible to the people who worked for both of them, which was the kind of work he was good at, the kind that was slow and painful and necessary. He thought about what Carson had been trying to do. He thought about the calculation it required, the years of patience, the positioning, the choice of the right moment. He thought about the way Carson had sat in that conference room, with his coffee cup, not arguing, not running, just sitting. And he thought that was almost the saddest part of it, the stillness, the sense that somewhere along the way Carson had stopped believing there was a version of this that didn't end the way it did. He didn't have an explanation for that. He had learned, over 40 years, that some things didn't have explanations that were worth looking for. Some things just happened, and then you dealt with them, and then you kept going. He was 63 years old. His name was on the building. He had a lot of years of kept going behind him, and, if he was lucky, a few more ahead. He went upstairs and he got to work.